The Choose Love movement offers no-cost solutions that keep our kids safe, providing them with the skills and tools they need to flourish. Join us in our mission to create the world we want to live in, one that's connected and compassionate. Check us out at chooselovemovement.org. Together, we can choose love.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Choose Love podcast. I have a really special guest today. Jonathan Lewis Sr. is here to tell us about his son, Jonathan Jr. You may have read about the Lewises in the media, unfortunately, fairly recently. Unfortunately, there was a fight and John lost his son. His son was murdered. And I don't want to say too much about that, John, because I want you to talk about what happened and what needs to happen. But first, I want you to tell us more about Jonathan and who he was. I mean, I know a lot about him already because of his actions during what happened and what I've read about him, which is so incredible. And it reminds me so much of Jesse and his heroism in a situation that our kids should never find themselves in, especially in today's world. But unfortunately, we are two parents that are bereaved and that are connected in that way, but also on this incredible journey to make the world a better place so that other parents don't have to suffer like we did. And I'm just so happy that you're here with us today, Jonathan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Scarlett. It's an honor to be here, and I just hope that all children can receive love and compassion and find a deep sense of community and find the will within themselves to choose that versus choosing hate and anger and rage.
Yeah, interesting that you use the word choice, because to a certain degree, it is a choice when you have some awarenesses, skills, and tools.
Yeah.
So otherwise, maybe it's not so much a choice, but once you have that awareness, boy, it is. And that's what you and I are both dedicated to bring to the world. But would you just give us a sense of who Jonathan, I say is, I always use the current tense because they're around us. They continue to exist. And we see Jonathan's beautiful influence in his organization that you created, in his actions, in what's going to be moving forward to change the world. But I just kind of wanted to know through your eyes a little bit more about Jonathan when he was with us in this world.
Yes, thank you so much, Scarlett. And first, just let me say, yeah, I completely concur. If children are taught the ability to be present and be able to choose consciously, then they're making a truly conscious choice. But they have to be taught that truly. My son was a very loving and kind young man. I mean, he loved his friends and his family, and he, like other children, have a lot of really deep, complex issues because of the way the world is and trying to understand how to fit in a world that is having major events and all around them. There's a really difficult, there seems to be this drive to choose teams and choose sides and to, always have these polarities. And I think that Jonathan just really just wanted to just live his life with love and caring about his friends and family. And he loved to go camping. I got to take him on his first camping trip. He loved that so much. He loved nature so much. He loved art so much. A few years ago, he was really getting into music and he wanted to be a musician. And I've been trying to help him pursue that. And I even was really critical about that and was like, well, son, don't worry about getting a little part-time job. I just got a bank account for him and just like sent him money. And I was like, just pursue your dreams, just and he really embraced that. And even at 17 years old, I had a conversation with my son a few months ago about how if you have love in your life and you have people that love you, that you have deep riches. And at 17 years old, my son understood that, and I thought that was really inherently indicative of who he was as a human being, and that he was, had really a lot of deep wisdom within himself, and deep love for life, and he had a very complex life as well. There was a lot of dynamics there. His mother and I were separated when he was very young, and he was estranged from me a lot of his life, and we had back and forth, and sometimes he would come live with me, and so I finally was able to get a really deep relationship with him over the last 3 years, and so he's had a lot of challenges in his life as well, and really just, I think, faced them with love and a deep will to live bright and to be connected with people. He loved his friends so much, and that's why he was sticking up for them so much. That he had a small friends group, and they went through a lot together. And I was actually trying to remove my son from the situation he was in and get him to come live with me. And so there's some deep complexities there too. And through it all, he just continued to just try to be the best person he could be, and love everyone unconditionally and not take sides. Even between him, his mom and I, he would not even want to take sides. He just loved us all and wanted to just be that centered place where he could, that person that's centered, and where he could just kind of touch everybody's life with love and compassion. And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and he lived that way, and he died that way. There was a fight um, at his high school in Las Vegas. And can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
yeah, so there were some events that led up to this. And Jonathan only had a small friend group, him and two main friends that he had. And there was several events where his friend had stuff stolen from him. Obviously, this group of young men, they're in a region around Rancho High School that's wrought with gang mentality and criminal mentality. It's an impoverished ghetto region, and it was just, there's a lot of horrific circumstances that these young men and women go through, and the gang mentality and the criminal mentality is very prevalent. And so, yeah, I mean, they were bullying him. They were bullying him and his friends, and just taking their stuff and acting like they could just do whatever they want because they're the dominant group. That's bullying. It's horrific kind of bullying. It's like a dominator culture bullying, where the bigger group just thinks that they can just do whatever they want because they have the ability to inflict more physical violence. I mean, that's simply the facts. And at 13, 14, 15 years old, your mind is not fully developed. You don't have a deep sense of your ideology and the complex sociological concerns, but you do know the difference between right and wrong. I mean, you definitely do. I remember back to 10 years old, I knew the difference between what was right and what was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing things that were not okay. They were stealing and bullying and acting like they could just do whatever they want because they're the dominant group. And the school knew about stuff like this. This has been an ongoing issue. There's a lot of issues like this in the school.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonathan and his friend just couldn't take it anymore. They're just backed into a corner. They're just like a ravenous dog backed into the corner that's just trying to defend themselves and doesn't know what to do. And this group is all around them all the time at the school. You know how school environments are. It's a small environment. At any turn you could get bombarded with a part of this group or with the whole group, and it just dominates your psyche and it just overwhelms you. And my son and I had many conversations about things were going on, but he wouldn't tell me everything. A part of that is because there was a lot of complex issues occurring that I don't really want to describe because I don't want to offend his mother or harm anyone. And it's just there was a lot of other social complexities in his life. So he he wouldn't tell me everything. He told me some things, and I got a sense of it, and I was just like, Jonathan, you need to leave Las Vegas right now. Like, I want you on a plane right now. I'm about to buy you a plane ticket. And, I was trying to work this out. It was so, I could sense it. I could feel it in his tone of voice, in his conversation. He was very stressed, and I didn't know everything. I tried everything I could do. And yeah, it just came to
Basically, it was like he was being bullied by, was it gang related?
Yeah, as far as we understand, well, either way, Scarlett, hands down, like that region is around Rancho High School as predominantly a ghetto impoverished region that is dominated with criminal and gang mentality.
Yeah.
And yeah, as far as we understand it, there's multiple associations with gangs within this group, and that's just they just were dominating them and bullying them and acting like they could do whatever they want, steal their stuff, and just kept pushing them and kept pushing them. And Jonathan just wanted to just defend his friends. He was actually living with one of his friends and his friend's mom, and he loved his friends so much. And they were going through a lot of stuff, and it was very harsh. And so yeah, at a certain point, he tried to confront this whole group by himself with his one friend to get his stuff back and to have some justice for his son, some healthy warrior culture mentality. Like, I'm not going to let he was a bigger boy, and he was just like, I'm going to fearlessly go and tell these people they can't abuse me and my friends. And they, I believe that they conceived a plan to gang up on him and beat him. I mean, they just immediately rushed in, and he was doing a normal healthy warrior thing that you do. He was defending himself, and
he was defending his friend who was smaller, you said, and
yes.
The fight actually was over a wireless headphones and a vape pen. Is that right?
Yes, and that they were stealing that. Yeah, they were just acting like they could bully them and take stuff from them anytime they want. And he just has two small friends, and he's a really big kid, and yeah, he's just trying to protect them. And yeah, it's obviously, these kids, they knew what they were doing, and they knew what they were doing is wrong, and yeah, they beat him to death.
Yeah, so in a group of 10 or 12 boys, they surrounded your son, and unfortunately, the video was online, and you saw what that looked like, and they beat him to death right there.
Yeah, and what's even more perverse to me is that they filmed it. This, like, it's just inherently reflective of how contorted we have become. Like this, it was actually something that they thought they would just be able to get away with and just use it as entertainment and put it on social media. I mean, it's just absolutely mind blowing that it's come to this. It's to me, it's inherently indicative of pathological normalization. We have like a lot of toxic culture that is just normalized, like violence and resolving conflicts by being violent and dominating and just saying, oh, you can't tell me what to do, and not trying to work things out and just letting things build up and just saying, well, just pull up your bootstraps and just deal with it, and don't express your emotions healthily. And if you have any anger or rage or any of these other emotions, you should just bottle them up and not have healthy outlets to express them. And it's just absolutely absurd to me. I mean, this is a non-dualistic reality. We should have healthy ways to express those things.
But we have to learn those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're not born with healthy ways to deal with our emotions. We learn by watching other people, and or also learning from our parents. Hopefully, if we have parents with these skills and tools, we learn from our parents modeling, and then a best case scenario, we get it reinforced and practiced at school as well. But sometimes parents don't have these skills and tools, really to no fault of their own. They weren't taught, and they can't give what they don't have. So then we rely on the schools and the communities to help make up this lack. And this is a situation that shows what happens when we don't do that, when we don't take responsibility for what's going on in our community, and we let kids bully each other. and this is what can happen.
Yeah, and expanding upon that, that's absolutely critical. We don't have we in psychology, there's a deep need to have integrative practices. Teaching diet and understandings of that. There's actually practices out there that teach you to healthily express your emotions, and like you're saying, there needs to be an actual formulated curriculum that's implemented on a consistent basis and then reflected inside of other institutions that our children are involved in, and it should be passed around the entire community. Other parents should enforce that inside of their home when the children are there. And there's a deep need for this to have integration and across the spectrum of the community. And expanding upon that too, what really I feel in my heart, and this message I keep receiving so deeply, is that also they don't have there's a popularism around dominator culture, and there's a less popularism around inspired positive behavioral culture, where we sensationalize violence, and we sensationalize the ability to be a warrior, but we don't look at what a healthy warrior is. There's lots of warriors in my family. Like, I have all the way down from World War II veterans, and they always teach us to be loving and kind and respectful and have honor and dignity and there's nothing wrong with being a strong man and a strong male, but there is something wrong with being psychopathic. There's no sense to me, there's absolutely no relation between being a healthy warrior, like I'm a warrior father, like I protect my children and I protect all children and I protect people around me, but at the same time I'm completely compassionate about it. I have deep empathy, and if somebody's suffering and they're confused, and they maybe have some mental health problems, or they're somehow they're just going through something extreme and painful and traumatic, I don't look at them as somehow as some kind of person that's inadequate. I look at that as an authentic expression of pain and trauma, and I have empathy for them, and I don't see them as some dangerous person. Like, when somebody is suffering and struggling, that's a time when the community needs to love them more and surround them more. And that's a buffer, that's an energy that builds up, that people that person can resonate off of, instead of resonating off of their reactive senses, which is, everybody just thinks I'm such a freak, and everybody just thinks that, there's something wrong with me. Like, I just want to lash out at them because they're hurting me even more. If we just build up that sense of love and compassion and just having empathy for these people, and recognizing that, hey, this is a complex life. There's a lot of traumas. There's a lot of trauma that has occurred over history. We're at very critical points in the history of humanity. This is a very complex society. We're being told, we tell children that that their value in their life is related to what kind of job they can get and what kind of output they can put into society, when nature inherently tells us that the wellspring of life, the endless essence and origin of life, is boundless and abundant, and that life all forms, it fits into itself, and everything contributes to each other, and there's a mutual cooperative spectrum, and everybody mutually cooperates and flourishes, and in an endless and boundless nature. And then we're telling human children that their value is based upon what kind of job they can get and what kind of input that they can have into society, instead of teaching them to be well-rounded, inspired individuals that have a deep, multifaceted nature, and that have a deeply rooted center, but also at the same time branch out, and they study art, and they study science, and they study their environment and the community, and they feel like they can make a contribution even if they work at McDonald's. And it's a horrific pain that we're imposing upon young people, that, oh, well, you must just have this type of structure that's implemented in your life. Like, yeah, we teach them to discipline and to be structured. At the same time, teach them how deeply enriching they are to the world, and how much they can make a contribution just by existing.
Yeah, yeah, give them an idea of meaning and purpose in their life. I mean, one of the things that really struck me, Jonathan, and before we even spoke, was your response that I read about in, online in the news article, but your response to what happened was so incredibly compassionate, and the comments that you made about the boys who murdered your son. Can you share what you said and why? I know that the Choose Love audience is going to be fascinated by how quickly you were able to come to compassion.
Um, so I just want to give you a little background and just say to you that I have experienced some of the most absolutely unimaginable traumas that anybody could experience in their lives. I grew up in Salinas, California, and 2 houses down from where the dividing line was between the Norteños and Sureños. And all of a sudden, I'd be at my park and 30 people would be killing each other, and there'd be dead bodies on the ground, and I'd be getting shot at. And my father worked in the prisons as an electrician, and it was brutally complex, and he was very traumatized by it. And some days he'd come home and just beat me with a 2x4 because I misplaced one of his hundreds of tools, and until the point of where I could barely walk. But he was a loving man too, and he just didn't understand how to be able to cope with what he was going through. Like, he would sit there and describe to me how there was just an incredible gang war inside of the prison, and 7 people just shanked each other to death with. And I'm 7 years old, and he's sitting here describing this to me, and that's why he beat me so bad, because I misplaced one of his screwdrivers, and if that would have happened at the prison, they would have used it for one of their gang wars.
Oh, God.
And then by the time I was 11 years old, my father totally broke down, and he almost killed me with a nail prank bar. I was trying to protect him. He became a drunk and an alcoholic, and he had a very complex mind, and he was very highly intelligent. He went to actually UNLV for like 8 years, and he was a very intelligent man, but he just couldn't cope. He wasn't developed emotionally. He didn't have a deep emotional intelligence, and yeah, he almost took half of my face off of my face with a nail prying bar, and I passed out in a pool of my own blood. And my oldest brother, who had just gotten out of the Marine Corps and didn't have any structure in life, he just was living out of his car. He came and he picked me up from my dad's house, and then I lived homeless with him, and I worked brutally hard labor, and to the point of where I worked for a concrete company alongside immigrants in my own country at just 12 and 13 years old. And my hands would get so blistered I couldn't even hold a fork to eat my food. And then we survived all this stuff, and my oldest brother made it to IBM as a computer scientist, and then he died 2 weeks later. And then I joined the military the day I turned 18, and I left the military early because I had major medical problems. I had to have surgeries on my neck, and I was getting these really bad infections. And so I've just experienced just absolutely unimaginable traumas in my life. And when that happened to me when I was 12 years old, I had a deep awakening within myself, if you will. I don't want to like promote spiritual awakenings unless it's something that people resonate with, but I looked at what men do, and I chose that at that time that I never wanted to be like that, and I never wanted people to hurt. And I chose at that time that like swelled up in me as deep compassion instead of anger and revenge. And I was so overwhelmed with just deep empathy for my father, and for love, and for the pain that he went through. His dad was a highly decorated World War II veteran, and his mom died when he was just a little boy. And so, just absolutely unimaginable traumas in my lineage. And
so would you
my
say
mom,
that you came to, because you can repeat the pattern, you can do what you know because that's what you know and you're uncomfortably comfortable with, or you can have that awakening, and it sounds like you considered your father's pain, even generationally, and it sounds like you forgave him, and that was part of your spiritual awakening.
yeah, it was one of the deepest parts of my spiritual awakening. And then Actually, strangely enough, I gathered with a bunch of misfits in Las Vegas, and we started a movement in Las Vegas called MVibe. And we started like practicing Native American shamanism, and we like have huge drum circles, and we started a hip hop label, and we started this movement in Las Vegas in the late '90s. And I actually, believe it or not, I mean, not that I'm promoting it, but I actually took psilocybin when I was 14 years old, and it had a major healing from it, and it changed my entire life, actually, to be honest with you. And I was able to, it shifted my entire life. And I met my father in a place of forgiveness and love and compassion, and all those other people that had, all the other abuses that I had gone through. And I mean, obviously my story is very profoundly extreme, but yeah, I chose consciously that I never wanted to be like these people, and I didn't want to hurt. I didn't want people to ever hurt. I didn't want people to go through the things that I had gone through and seen my brothers and my mom go through. And yeah, I consciously chose that when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And when this happened, I saw a few moments of that video, and to me, it looked like these children were like just totally possessed. I mean, it looked like, yeah, like I said, they know the difference between right and wrong. But I'm so deeply involved in the community myself. I'm a part of a huge community of people that is like whatever, movers and shakers. We throw festivals, we like study ancient wisdom traditions, and just we practice powerful healing practices. And I just saw this, and I just felt like everything that I've learned in my life was, something that I could have taught these kids. And that these kids were just totally lost souls, and that they're just totally broken, and that their world's broken, and that, they're just hurting. And all of children, so many of these children in these inner cities, I experienced what they experienced, and they're just hurting so bad, and they're so lost, and they don't know what to do, and they don't have any other real inspirations. And they're, what's popular to them is like you said, our children are deeply a reflection of what they absorb in the world. And what are they absorbing? War and fighting and mass murder and just absolutely insanity on a consistent basis. And yeah, I couldn't feel anything other than just deep sorrow for humanity and deep compassion for these poor children that are just so lost and don't have any deep enrichment in them spiritually and virtuously. And I just, I don't know, I love all children, and I feel like I'm a father to all children, and it just hurt me. It just hurt me for humanity. And I just felt, like a deep compassion for humanity, because I love humanity. I think we have a deep, great potential that we have not reached yet. And I got to experience so much love when I was a teenager. Like I was saying, we started this movement, but most of the people that were doing this was my older brother and his group of friends, which were older than me. And so I was surrounded by like 50 or 100 or 500 people that were older than me at any given time when I was 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And they taught us an honor code, They taught us that we protect our women and our children in our tribe, and that we don't harm people, that we just try to solve our problems with music and dancing and taking medicine, ancient plant medicines. And so I also felt deep compassion from that, because I was like, wow, these kids probably don't have that, and how fortunate I am and to have had that. And I just wish all young men and women could experience that, what it feels like to have a deeply connected tribe community and just feel loved. And I'm also part of this really incredible community where I live, and 20 or 30 people were coming over to my house and taking care of me and just loving me, and I was just overwhelmed with how much compassion I was surrounded with. And it's just like, wow, if people could just experience like the power and the strength of what it feels like to be able to have such deep, rich love around you, and deep community, and people that are just care about you and just want to be there for you for no reason other than that they just love you. And yeah, I just couldn't, I don't know. I was just authentically responding to whatever. That's just I don't really know how else to be other than how I am. And I think it really upset some people. And I was just like, you know what? Well, do you think that vengeance and revenge would have saved my son? Because I think that would have caused more of the behaviors that led to this. And I think that the only things that would have caused this to be stopped was people having compassion and love for each other and empathy and caring about one another. And I think that that could have stopped this kind of madness from happening.
Jonathan, incredible. I mean, it brings me to tears how authentically you live your life from what you learned through pain. It is so incredibly beautiful, all the way to, having held your son's hand for 2 days on life support and thinking, I mean, the whole time from the very beginning, coming out with compassion for those boys. In fact, one of the things that you said, I'll never forget, you said those boys just could have just as easily been taught, been led to be working on some community project for good. Like they could have gotten together to do that, but they got together to kill my son. And that's so true. I mean, it's like an alternate universe. And so that's the world that you're trying to create now. You have found purpose in your pain, which you did, from childhood, and now your purpose has, I think, even become stronger. It's the same purpose, but it's become more focused through more pain, the loss of your son. And you've now started Team Jonathan Lewis, and you have these incredible pillars, which, by the way, yeah, would have saved your son's life, can reduce and prevent so much suffering. I agree wholeheartedly with them. And I just want you to talk a little bit about what you've learned through this experience and then where you're taking it. And I want people to listen, because we can all be a part of this. I think one of the things that we get stuck in doing is victimizing ourselves, like ranting and raving for other people to fix the problems that we're facing in our communities and in our world, when in reality, they're not going to. Nobody's coming to fix the problems. We have to step up and do that. And it's the same in, what you're saying. I love to see a fellow human being that takes responsibility for what's going on in the world and works to fix it. And that's exactly what you're doing. So can you talk to that, Jonathan?
Yes. Well, first, just let me tell you how grateful I am for the work that you do. It's so beautiful, and I cherish that so much, and I want to support you in any way that I can, and all the beautiful things you're doing for your beautiful son. And yeah, Scarlett, you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a song that I really love. It says, "We are the ones that we've been waiting for." Like if you don't take a stand and act based upon what you believe and the words that you speak, then they're just falling upon deaf ears, because people just like these, especially, and that's especially critical in this exact instance, because for the youth, that is one of the most absolutely profound concepts, what we're describing right now. The words will fall upon deaf ears. Like, they need to see action. They need to have a memory of that in their brain, and see that is what the solutions that we create are actually going to be manifested into society. And we are manifesting generators if we choose to be. Like, manifest destiny is a real thing. Like, we absolutely can place our mind in a direction, and we can go forth, and we can achieve, and we can absolutely manifest and be manifesting generators. And I happen to be deeply involved in this already, which is really interesting. Again, like in my work, I create whole management methods for my team members, where I help them produce self-activated self-awareness and self-regulation mechanisms and self-review mechanisms, where they get to build themselves up from recognizing their behavioral patterns. And I work with, many people that are disadvantaged youth. One of my apprentices right now, he just went to prison right out of high school. They don't, so they have gone through extreme things, that's actually why I left software. I used to work in software, but I now work as a licensed electrician. I manage for one of our country's biggest electrical contractors, and I have huge teams of people, and I have to create all these management styles for them. And I just happened to recognize I received this message when I was just sitting with all this pain and just wanting to transmute it and wanting to do something for my son, and just feeling that there's a deep need for those of us that go through these events to recognize that we have this incredible buildup of energy around us, and we should transfer that energy into something beautiful and positive. Mm-hmm. And what I understand from my experiences as an inner city youth is, and from the world as it is today, and as a father, these children need something tangible. They need something. They do need alternate teaching methods. Like you're saying, they need to be taught these curriculums like you have. They need to be taught deep emotional intelligence. They need to be able to taught to be present in the moment. Mm-hmm. They need to be able to be taught what spiritual enrichment is, what enrichment is as a whole. They need to understand metaphysics and the deep complexities of the sociological. But the other thing is that like you're saying, to be deeply inspired and to have a deep sense of purpose, it really it resonates and creates such a resonance within ourselves and our children that it deflects a lot of those other things. When you have a deep sense of purpose, the lower energies, the rage, the pain, the hate, those things are easily transmuted because you're rooted and grounded in something that is, you feel so deeply inside of yourself, and that everything else is filtered through that. So what I see is that there's a multifaceted approach. One is that you have to create a new popularism, which is why we're working towards having a peace concert on an annual basis for young people, on all ages of gathering, where like Woodstock, but in a smaller sense, where these kids can every year have some place to go together and feel what it feels like to gather in love and peace, and actually have that resonance as a memory structure inside of themselves throughout the whole year. And they can post things about it, and they can talk about it, and it can be popular. That can be what's popular. And then you take that. Yeah, so beautiful. And then I received this message too about, well, then you need to go a step further. There's philanthropist organizations like the Elaine Wynn Foundation. They have hundreds of millions of dollars that they just give to nonprofit organizations. Like that's their community. Go to the people there and be like, let's do something about this. If you have a healing arts center that takes that criminal mentality that is inherently entrepreneurial, if you think about it, it truly is entrepreneurial. Like they want to be self-made, they want to have independence, they want to be just have some be in their power, and the entrepreneurial spirit is very related to that. So and creativity and is as a mechanism for inspiration transmutes massive amounts of violent behavior. Because when you're inspired, you're able to have an outlet that easily transmutes much of that pain. You go directly to the inspiration, and so healing arts.
You use the pain as inspiration. Yeah. You grow from the pain. We're created to grow through pain. Pain gets us out of our comfort zone into our growth zone. But this is something that we teach. And then, it's so interesting that you talk about memories, because, we teach this choice moment where you get into the present moment, something's happening, say a bullying situation, and you get into the present moment where you pause and get curious before you react in a similar way, because reactions come from habit or memories. And mostly you know, a lot of times is painful memories from childhood. They may not even be accurate, but you're reacting from those memories. Or you can thoughtfully respond, and we say thoughtfully respond with love. But interesting that you're talking about creating those memories. As my mom says, you know, you're wanting these kids to choose love, but they don't know, they don't have any sort of history with love. It's like giving somebody a warm chocolate chip cookie and saying, here, take it. And you've never tasted a chocolate chip cookie. You don't know how good it is. And so you're saying create the memories so they can feel what love feels like, the goodness, the strength, because otherwise what we're being told in our society through movies, through video games, through what we see from our leaders in social media, that violence and war is powerful, drugs are cool, and in reality, all those things are weak. They're weak, and love is what is strong. And so to be able to feel that, to create memories, I love that, Jonathan.
Yeah, and I love what you just said too. Like they don't have the memory of love, but especially with each other, because a lot of them will have some memories of love from that from home and some with some of their family maybe, but from each other. That's the critical thing is get them together in their own kind of like Woodstock thing or whatever you want to call it, and actually get them have they're taking pictures, they remember it, they're sharing those around social media. It's a powerfully positive event every year, and they're able to just have that as a resonance for how to interact with one another, and it's like it's a catalyst, it's an inverted introspective catalyst point to the exact event of my son. And then it's having a healing arts center, something physical, a physicality that is able to be a launching point, rudimentary rooted structure that then can branch out like mycelium does. It's interconnected, and then you have a satellite program that goes to maybe when we're going to try and work with Uber and get other organizations involved, get lots of organizations involved, be able to bring these kids to this place. Take the exact event of my son's death and say, well, you could have been filming a breakdancing video there. And you could have brought it back to the Healing Arts Center and had professional videographers help you make it the design out of it and promote it and make it into something that you can use to build yourself up and develop yourself and have your own entrepreneurial spirit and promote self-development as well, so that they build some confidence and have some actually feel valuable and feel like they're enriching their world and that their world is not just hopeless.
I mean, I think that what you're saying and really what you've laid out on your website, and I encourage everybody to go visit Pillars of Team Jonathan, is something that is not a luxury, not a want to have. At this point, our kids are in so much pain.
Yeah.
It is a need to have. It is obviously what we're doing isn't working. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. There's so much more that we can do. And the thing is, we are responsible for our children's safety, health, and well-being. We're the adults. We can't rant and rave at other people. These are kids killing themselves and each other at unprecedented rates. And I think that when we wake up and realize that we're responsible, we have to be out there and start being part of the change. Taking responsibility means doing something, making a positive action, whether it's supporting a group that's doing the work or whether it is making a positive action yourself, however small it is. Once you do that, you realize, ooh, this feels good. I can make a difference. And you continue. I mean, we're responsible for the world that we're leaving our kids. What kind of world do we want to leave them? Do we want to leave them this world? I think not. I think there's a lot of cleaning up that we have to do. We've been too lax and too insular and thinking just about ourselves and not so much the responsibility that we have to all children. And, you know, it's incredible that we're talking about this as victims of children that have been murdered in cold blood. And I guess, you know, for me, it took that. You were on the change quite a while before, but for me, it took the murder of my son to actually wake up and realize, whoa, wait a minute. We're responsible for kids killing each other, and we need to make a change. No longer, by the way, can anyone who's listening or anybody who won't listen to this say that they won't be impacted, because now everyone is impacted, because everyone followed your story, Jonathan. Everybody, you know, read about it. They saw the video, and you know, if you're even if you don't know someone who has experienced violent murder of a child, you know somebody who's lost someone to substance abuse, you know somebody in your own life, probably your inner circle, maybe yourself, who suffers from mental illness. And a lot of this suffering can be reduced and prevented by what you're talking about, by what we do in the Choose Love movement. I know that we hope to love and support your efforts, Jonathan, as you go forward, as is you know, an incredible organization that you're partnering with, Dads in Schools, which is an organization that has run by Pastor Troy in Las Vegas, who's a very public figure there, but having fathers come in and volunteer at schools to oversee. You know, we're asking educators to do too much, so parents actually coming in and who take responsibility for what's going on, just to keep the peace and help teach lessons socially and emotionally by their presence and seeing things and breaking up fights. And they've had incredible success because we need to be present and we need to model this stuff for our kids. We've got plenty of unfortunately adults modeling other things for our kids, and we need to stand up and do the right thing. And it's maybe not the easy thing, but for me it's the only thing to do, because it is the right thing to do, and that's exactly what you're advocating for.
Yeah. And, you know, like one of the things you just touched on is really critical, you know, partnerships and getting involved. But the other thing too, that the sense I really get is that, well, the other thing too is that let's be real. We have epidemics of suicide and mental illness and you know, just absolute depravity. However, you know, these are as monumental as these tasks are. We need to understand that we can do something about it. You know, this is not a hopeless situation. There's tons of people out there that are working diligently, that have created organizations like you, like Pastor Troy. There's people all over the country, you know, and there's musicians and artists that are constantly doing this and getting together and gathering with people and trying to make change and actually making change and inspiring people and changing people's lives, and people are getting healed. And this is not a hopeless situation. I mean, there is for instance, like I think about things in the logical sense of the universe. When something is more monumental, the energy behind it is more expansive and more intense. And so, you know, all we have to do is just implement that and feed that and go and don't stop and just continue and like you're saying, join together and work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Jonathan, if it's okay, for those who are listening that aren't going to make it to your website, can I read your statement that you made? So your son, unfortunately, died early in November. So I'm kind of giving like a time frame. I know the attack occurred on November 1st, and then he died six days later after being in intensive care on life support. And so this is a statement that you made on November 17th. So this is very shortly after your son's death. And I think it's so beautiful that it's worth reading, especially to the Choose Love audience who will really appreciate this. But it says, a lot of people want to know why I said, quote, I hope that they can find forgiveness in their hearts and come to terms with what they've done, end quote, in the news about the children that murdered my son. My fury comes out in compassion. If I'm just vengeful, filled with rage, spite, hate, then I'm just continuing the cycles that led to these children becoming this way. I don't want that in this world. My son doesn't want that in this world. I'm furious with more than just these children. I'm a father whose son was just beaten to death because collectively we don't value human life enough. We don't focus on the best human traits of kindness, love, generosity, compassion, and empathy. I do hope these children find forgiveness in their hearts, because if more people had forgiveness, love, compassion, and empathy, my son would probably still be alive. I'm an incredible warrior father. I take my children into the forest, hunt, gather, and protect all with love, compassion, and empathy. Jonathan was love, not hate, vengeance, rage, anger, and revenge. Another critical confusion is when I stated that it looked like these kids were possessed by anger, rage, and hate. I meant that in the sense that any human can have hate, having nothing to do with racism. We just don't have enough love. And you capitalize love. That's what I meant. Love is justice. Forgiveness is love. Wow. So amazing.
Thank you.
And you know what? That is a testament to having a choose love mindset. And a mindset is a way of seeing, feeling, and being in the world. And you explained to us by your upbringing and what you learned and how you were determined to make different choices. You learned from mistakes and chose a different way. You had developed this mindset. So when faced with the vicious and brutal murder of your son, you maintained that integrity of that mindset, that fortitude that you had been building within yourself for love and compassion, that incredible strength. And it has carried you through to the point where so quickly you focused on making the world a better place. You know, you and I spoke on the phone so soon after, and you were already talking about your plans and how you were going to honor your son's legacy, and how you felt compassion for those boys and how they could have just as easily been doing something positive that would make the world a better place, yet here they are ganging up on your son. And it blows me away. And I'm in this space, and it's like, I love this, Jonathan. It's possible. Here it is. And let's, all of us that are listening right now, and spread this podcast to your friends, have other people listen, because this is what we need to do. We need to love and support Jonathan's efforts. We all need to be a part of the solution to what is happening today. And it feels good. It feels good. It feels powerful. It's unifying. And the whole time that you're on this path, you are moving fear aside, and anger and hatred and revenge. You're literally moving it aside and marching forward in love.
Yeah, and I thank you so much, Scarlett. That's so beautiful. I'm so grateful for your beautiful inspiration and enthusiasm, and also to expand upon that. I just want people to feel something very clearly. I work in construction, and I'm a licensed electrician, and I make more money than most of the people there, and it's incredibly violent environments with men that have just gone through so much suffering and trauma, and there's violence all the time, and people talk about like slitting each other's throats and all kinds of insane things. And guess what? I'm kind and loving and respectful to every member of every person on that job site. I walk by everybody and place my hand on my heart and share a sense of community and love with them. And you know what? Everyone has always respected and loved me, because this is a great strength. It's not some weak thing that's just some idea. It actually works in real everyday life, and my life is proof of it. And it is absolutely powerful when people feel like what it feels like for somebody to consistently day in and day out live that way and care about others, that you're not even somebody that they knows them, and you say hello to them, and you're kind and respectful and loving to them. It shocks them to their core. It makes a difference.
It makes a difference. It does make a difference. And Jonathan, you're making a difference in this world. And I'm so grateful to you. I just know that Jesse and Jonathan Jr. are together. And I believe that, that they brought us together and want us to work with one another and love and support each other's efforts. We're in this space for a reason. We have an incredible, strong purpose. And I'm just so grateful to have met you. And thank you for sharing your compassionate and incredibly strong heart with the Choose Love community. And I look forward to, working together to create the world that we want to live in, one that is safe and peaceful and loving and kind.
Thank you too, Scarlett. I'm so greatly honored, and I'm filled with gratitude and love towards you, and it's such an honor to meet you, and bless you all.
Thank you so much.
Hey, hey, oh. It's all part of us. We can all choose love. It'll lift you up if you let it in. Let the